Hey, welcome. My name is Christy Mattoon, and I'm with Mind Rewire, and we are working through Gregg Braden's new book, The Wisdom Codes. And we are on code number 2. How did you do with code number 1? So code number 1 was Psalms 91, which I'm very familiar with, very comfortable with. I love Psalms 91. I use it for all kinds of things. And I've just found it very cool to hold it in the sacred space of my heart and even go deeper. And to me, that was just amazing. It was just awesome. Wisdom code number 2 is a Buddhist prayer of refuge. And I'm going to read a little bit of this to you because I'm not very familiar with Buddhism. The little bit I've read about it, I have not studied it. I won't lie to you about that. But I find this very powerful and very interesting, and it's something you have to feel. Like everything else, you have to find this feeling and find this place inside of you. So wisdom code number 2 is a Buddhist prayer of refuge. And the code itself says, this is what the code itself is. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. That's it. That's how simple this is. So the use for this is protection. The code addresses the need for personal protection at a spiritual level for a specific period, meaning a specific period of time. This is from the traditional Tibetan Buddhist prayer of refuge. And the full text of this is included in the book itself, but I probably won't read the full thing. Although I am going to read a little bit about what this is and where this came from. In the text itself, in the book, it says, Anatomy of a Tibetan Buddhist Protection. So this gives the anatomy of it a little bit, some good understanding. The chemical codes of human life in our DNA strands are typically simplified by using 4 letters of the alphabet, the letters C, T, A, and G, as a shorthand representing the 4 proteins that make life possible: cysteine, thymine, adenine, and guanine. While some proteins contain as many as hundreds of underlying amino acids, by using different combinations of the shorthand, it becomes possible to read, write, and describe even the most complex proteins quickly and easily. The Buddhist prayer of refuge works in a very similar way. While the prayer itself contains many layers and depths and meaning, the essence of the prayer is represented by only 3 brief verses. And it's just as simple letters, C, T, A. The G represents, or NG, represent a deeper meaning for DNA codes. Each verse of the wisdom code number 2 represents a deeper understanding of ourselves and our experiences in our lives. Following a brief anatomy of this prayer, describing the meaning of refuge itself and the 4 underlying principles that give a varying degree of refuge in our lives. All right, so I'm going to read those to you also because these are important to understand this, especially if you don't understand Buddhism. So first of all, the meaning of refuge. The traditional Buddhist texts describe different kinds of varying degrees of refuge that we may seek over the course of our lives. With respect to wisdom code number 2, the word refuge can initially mean protection from suffering by turning to ways of thinking and living that reflect the teaching of the Buddha. This kind of refuge is described as taking the form of 3 objects or principles of Buddha: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly of Sangha. Following is a brief description of each principle and what it means to our lives. So now I'll read those brief descriptions. So the first one is refuge in the Buddha. The first object of refuge is the path of the Buddha, or the Buddhism itself. To take refuge in the Buddha, this is what it means to take refuge in the Buddha. It's to commit to a path of conscious thought, which is what we're all doing here. To commit to a path of mindful action designed to lead to a greater state of awareness of ourselves, as well as our relationship to the world. This path requires a commitment to a deeper relationship between us and the enlightenment that Buddha tells us is possible in our lives. This is similar to what Christ teaches. Very, very similar. And I find that wonderfully interesting. All right, refuge in the Dharma. So this is the second object of refuge in this little verse. The second object of refuge is Dharma. Within the context of the Buddhist prayer of protection, this refuge is found in the writings, Buddhist scriptures, that harmonize the unsettled and fearful emotions of the mind. So the Dharma harmonizes the unsettled and fearful emotions of the mind, shifting our attention away from the chaotic matter of the world to the harmony that's reflected in the nature of the human body that frees us from fear and suffering. That's awesome. That's exactly what we're doing here. And it's going to be even more so after this. All right, the third principle is the refuge of the Sangha. And this is spelled Sangha, Sangha. I apologize to all of those of you who know how to pronounce it, and I hope I'm getting it right. All right, the third object is a refuge of the Sangha. This is a reference to spending time in the company of the Bodhisattvas, beings who have achieved the state of consciousness, a higher advanced state of consciousness. These are compassionate beings who, although they have already reached a state of enlightenment, choose to remain in the unenlightened realm of everyday life on earth to ease the suffering of those who have not yet achieved this same state. That sounds like my angel team. Totally in alignment with what I've got going on. This is amazing and wonderful to me. All right, principle number 4. The prayer for unlimited duration. I love this part of this. Very simple words. The fourth principle that bring this code to completion is the last and final portion of the recitation. I'm having trouble reading that word. So the end sentence there, and the end sentence said, until I attain enlightenment, right? So this is a specific period of time. This parameter is simply stated, until I attain enlightenment. This sect of Buddhism, this state of enlightenment is clearly described. It is a successful realization of the Bodhisattva's consciousness. So Bodhisattva's consciousness, and that is a realization when you get to this place where you've attained this enlightenment. Taken literally, the conclusion of Wisdom Code number 2 tells us that the refuge and protection we're asking for is to be sustained until we've reached enlightenment and become a Bodhisattva. The vow that combines these 4 principles is the source of the code's power. All right, how to use Wisdom Code number 2. The power of Wisdom Codes come from the repetition and doing so in the affirmative. This imprints the code in the subconscious mind. We create the heart-brain harmony described in the first part of the book, which is, I'll go over that with you here in just a second. And then you sit and you say this inside your heart, basically, is the gist of all this. So there's 2 different ways you can say this. He has the English translation, which is, the English translation is this: in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. So you got to find some flow in saying that. In the Sanskrit language, the code's origin, each fragment of the wisdom code begins with the word Namo, N-A-M-O, Namo, meaning homage or reverence. It is spoken like this: Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghyaya. So whichever you want in the Sanskrit, and I'll put this in the comments below this video so you can see it. In the English translation, we're going to use the English because it's easier for me to be able to do. But what I want you to do now is take 3 nice big breaths, big inhale, pulling oxygen and energy up into your system. Pull your oxygen all the way to the top of your head if you can. Close your eyes, and as you exhale, you're just letting that breath leave your body nice and long and slow, a nice relaxed breath. As you inhale again, pulling oxygen and energy up into your body, all the way to the top of your head if you can, and then relaxing and releasing that breath in a nice, long, slow manner. Inhaling one more time. Bringing oxygen and energy into the top of your head. And as you exhale, I want you to land in the center of your heart. We're landing in the sacred space of the heart, which is the energy of the heart. And I want you to move right into feeling gratitude or compassion, a sense of caring for something outside of you. We're going to be here for about 3 minutes. I want you to really get into the space of your heart. If you find yourself thinking, just bring your awareness back into the center of your heart. If you find yourself thinking, bring yourself back into the center of your heart. To feel gratitude, just see a sunset, see a sunrise. And as you're settling into this place in the center of your heart, I'll read this verse to you again, this wisdom code. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. The key is to embrace this code with a focus and awareness, with your breath, and feeling it in your heart rather than in your mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, I take refuge until I attain enlightenment. Stay in this place in your heart as long as you can. When you're ready, take 3 or 4 nice deep breaths. And then you can open your eyes. I would come back to this a few times. One of the things about the wisdom codes is that the power in them come from their repetition and doing so in the affirmative. So in the affirmative, we have this higher level of feeling inside our hearts, inside the sacred heart. And then stating the wisdom code in repetition will add that layer of protection. And it also gives you deeper understanding. So I sat for a few days actually meditating on this and on the idea of the Buddha itself and the meaning that he had described in it, or put to it in here, that it's a commitment to the path of conscious thought and mindful action designed to lead to a greater state of awareness of ourselves as well as our relationship to the world. You sit and just meditate on that by itself, you're going to get a new understanding and a deeper level, a deeper sense of not only your heart, but the world and the entities, the things around you, whether it's Bodhisattva or whether it's your angel team. You're going to find a greater, deeper sense of awareness of these things. I hope this blesses you. I hope this helps you. If you don't have the book yet, here's what it looks like. Very fun read, fun to go through, very active book. I bless you, and we will see you again for the next, let's actually look and see what it is. Wisdom code number 3 is the Lord's Prayer. All right, so we will be doing that next time. The Lord's Prayer appears in Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 through 13, if you want to look it up ahead of time. When you read these things, read them from a space of your heart because you get new information. All right, I bless you.